Hello and welcome to Living Proof, the Isaac Newton Institute podcast. My name is Dan Aspel and I'm your host. In today's episode, I'm joined by not one, not two, but three guests, all of whom won medals as podium finishers at the 2024 STEM for Britain Awards at the UK Parliament in March. I'll be speaking to them about their success in the highly competitive poster exhibition and how it felt to present their mathematical research to politicians and the public. We hope you enjoy the episode. So welcome to Living Proof. In today's episode, I have three guests, which is always a treat, and we're going to go around and introduce ourselves one by one. So starting with you, Katherine.
So my name is Katherine Benjamin. I'm from the University of Oxford, and I work in applied topology. So we look at ways we can apply methods from topology to understand problems in data science, especially medicine.
Fantastic. Thank you, Katherine. Next up, we have Daniel Gardham.
Hi, my name is Daniel Gardham. I'm from the University of Surrey. And I work in cybersecurity. In particular, I'm interested in designing post-quantum cryptography, so that's schemes that remain resilient even to the threat of quantum computers.
Wonderful, thank you. And lastly, we have Francisco.
Yeah, hello, I'm Francisco de Melo Virissimo, based at LSE, London School of Economics, and I'm a mathematician working on environmental science, broadly speaking. I'm mostly interested in modeling climate change and processes in the ocean as well.
That's fantastic. So even to a Philistine like me, I can tell immediately that you have very different research areas, which is amazing. And I guess it's obvious to anyone listening to this, the reason why you're all coming together is because you were entering this competition, which I mentioned in the introduction, STEM for Britain, which does allow research in all kinds of different directions. So to start off our conversation about this, the awards happened at the beginning of March 2024, and we're recording this at the end of April. So it's been a month and a half, a little bit longer maybe, since you guys found out that you were the three medalists. How do you feel about it? How does it feel now? Did it take a while to sink in? Does it feel like years ago, or does it feel like only yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it has sunk in. I felt excited and honoured. It's work with a huge number of people, so it's really interdisciplinary and broad area of research. So I felt really honoured to be able to present it on behalf of everyone. I was really thrilled.
Is that a feeling that you guys share, Francisco and Daniel?
I'd say so. For me, I mean, it was a big surprise. I think I told you after the event that I wasn't expecting, and although I knew about the event before from friends, etc., but I didn't expect it to be so competitive in terms of shortlisting, but also on the day. I mean, the research that was being showcased. I mean, so much interest, all very interesting and of such high quality and so well presented that it was a big surprise. I mean, a month's passed, but I'm still very, very happy about it.
Likewise, I really was quite surprised on the day. And I think part of this is because of the diversity of the research that was being presented. Even from my perspective, I found it very hard to weigh up, one candidate from another. But overall, it's just so interesting to see perhaps what other institutions are researching into. It's obviously very familiar with my own, but the strengths and everything that other research institutes have it was really great to see on the day.
Yeah, it's nice to hear you guys say that. It's definitely a thought which I've had when attending the event before, and I hope that the organisers don't mind me saying this, but it's almost a shame that there have to be medalists out of the 20 in each one of the categories. So you have 20 people who themselves are picked from hundreds for each of the STEM categories, and I understand that it's great to give an award, 3 awards in this case, to the top 3 that the judges deem are the most worthy. But also everyone who's there has done something very special just to be there. Now that I've undermined your achievement, I apologise. But it's nice to know that you were so impressed by the field around you. I'd love to know from each of you what attracted you to the event. And I guess in that question is included, how did you find out about it? Had you applied to it before? What made you want to submit your poster for STEM for Britain?
So maybe I'll go first. So I found out of it actually because my partner's also in STEM research, and her institution emailed her. She took one look at it and said, "Not for me, but actually, Dan, I think this might be something you'll be interested in." And absolutely, I really am quite passionate about the scientific engagement side of research, but part of that actually is I think it's quite difficult to enter this area. So for STEM for Britain for me was a way in. It was just sort of get involved with being able to talk about your research to interested people, and actually picking up one of the medals really sort of solidified it as something that perhaps I should pursue further. So for me, this is really sort of like what drew me to the competition, was this sort of way to enter, but also a little tester to see, do I enjoy talking to people? And it turns out, yes, I do.
Well, that's good to hear. Any other thoughts from Francisco or Katherine?
So I've been aware of the competition for a while. And I think for me, I was kind of waiting for the right thing to present. And so it kind of lined up that I had a piece of research that I thought was the kind of thing that could be digestible in a kind of open science format. So once I kind of had that, I was like, oh, this is perfect. I have something that I think can present, because especially in maths is one of those things that you have to be quite deep into it to understand things a lot of the time. So it can be quite tricky to kind of to present it and to come up with the kind of ideas that you want to present to an open audience. So part of it, I think, is having the project lined up that worked for that, at least for me.
For me, quite similar to Katherine, actually, because it's something I've been known for a long time, since my early PhD years, and I know quite a few people that tried to present and couldn't get in, but others that did get in, others that won awards as well. So I always wanted to. I had a bit of a very, I would say, my career is quite non-conventional, because I left, I was doing more pure mathematics, so I left it to start a career as a marine biogeochemist, which nothing to do, and then after some time I returned to something more in the interface of mathematics. So for me, there was the question of what subject do I submit my work to, and in the end was just about timing as well, was a lot about timing, and I could find the right occasion now that I'm doing quite a lot of maths, but in this sort of interface and a problem that's quite, I think, important to reach out to the politicians and peers, which is climate change.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the politicians there, Francisco, because Dan, you mentioned in your answer about outreach and speaking to other groups. Now, I'll make a statement now, tell me if I'm wrong, but I imagine that most of your interactions come with other researchers and people that generally will understand and know what it is that you're speaking about when you talk about higher maths. So you actually had to interact with MPs and who could be anybody. They could have a scientific background, they could have absolutely no scientific background. What was that experience like? What's it like trying to explain something which to most people is quite impenetrable, or at least they believe it to be impenetrable, to an audience that isn't technical? What was that experience like for you guys?
I think so. At least how I prefer to approach these is to make the problem relatable and try and get them invested. So this might mean talking to them about how the maths that I'm doing could impact them in their day-to-day lives. I think MPs are even more challenging because I would imagine almost all of the conversations they have is with someone who's trying to promote something, trying to secure funding or guide policy in some direction. So I must be one of many conversations they had even that day to try and secure funding or just even elevate the research profile of mathematics. So I think it is particularly challenging talking to MPs to try and capture their interest really. And for me, it's about getting them to understand how it could impact them as a human being, not just as a member of parliament.
Yeah, I would put it that way. It was much better than what I thought it would be, actually. So it was a big surprise. I had a lot of fun. Uh, I just pretty much didn't stop. I think for Daniel, he was next to me actually, Daniel. So I could see he was on the same, pace. Like we just had so many people interested, generally interested in talking to us. And so I couldn't stop just talking for an hour and a half. I talked to a few MPs, and they were quite interested. I mean, I think one thing that connects the three of us here is that our research is a bit timeless. It's like something so from data privacy that's related to Daniel research or climate change for mine. It's something that people concerns people in general, anyone, and in particular to climate change. It's something that the MPs themselves have to talk quite a lot about. So they were quite interested in. So it was easier, in fact, than I thought to make them engaged in the conversation, and I had great fun.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun as well. I think that's a good point about thinking about what it is about your research that would interest, say, an MP or member of the public. I think we spend a lot of time in our kind of academic bubble when we're only talking to other researchers, and I think there's a kind of grain of something that's kind of obviously interesting in every bit of research people do. And so the kind of challenge of finding what it is and finding what's going to appeal to a general audience was really interesting. And I think it kind of, at least for me, it helped to kind of contextualize my research. So I have a better idea of kind of, okay, why am I doing this? What's the kind of long-term aim of this, rather than just because I'm a mathematician and I find it interesting, which is important. But it's also interesting to kind of think about what the kind of broader context of my research is. So that was definitely a lot of fun, and I had a lot of fun explaining it to people as well.
Yeah, I had the privileged position of not having to explain anything to anyone, and in fact, just walking up and down and seeing you guys engage with people over the course of a couple of hours. What was it like explaining the same thing to numerous different people again and again and again? Did your explanation grow each time? Do you think you got better at it, or how was that experience for you?
I would say it didn't grow. I think it shrunk. I think as I went on, I realized the stuff that I kind of didn't have time to fit in, and that maybe I wasn't explaining so well. And it was more about kind of refining it to the bits that I could see kind of people get excited if I said something. So I'd only talk about that in the future. So definitely, yeah, it was definitely kind of, if I could have gone back and only done my final presentation every time, I would definitely do that. But so it was good to see how my presentation progressed. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the same. For me, it was a bit like training an AI algorithm. So the more data you get, the better your algorithm becomes. And for me, it was definitely like that. I didn't know how I would present, actually. I did a little bit of preparation beforehand. But for instance, in terms of the judges, I didn't know what would they expect me to do. I didn't know there was like a 3 minutes time or anything. So it was a bit quite ad hoc. But then as time goes on, and so you engage more and you see what people think, people ask more about, and where the bits that cap their interest, you sort of improvise and get in the end a better like a more defined sort of way of presenting. But yeah, it was in the end, I would say you learn a lot from the process. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Francisco, I also did quite a bit of prep, but actually the words that left my mouth, even on the first iteration, did not resemble this at all. And this process of refining really helps you identify what are the what are the interesting nuggets of your research that for a more general audience, and it is watching these reactions from the judges and from everyone else that was there, the MPs as well, and it's a very live process, because once you talk to one person, the next person's already queuing up, and so in the 3 seconds introduction, you're already thinking, right, cut this sentence, move on to something else, and spend more time here. It's a very, very dynamic hour and a half, I would say.
Yeah, it's really interesting to distill research into an elevator pitch, essentially, in that experience. And does that contrast quite a lot with your sort of daily academic lives? I'm guessing so, but maybe not. Let me know.
The more sort of typical academic format is going to be a talk that's like at least 15 minutes long. So you have a bit more time to kind of set things up and establish the context. I think that was the most challenging thing, was you have 3 minutes to present something. You don't have time to set up, what's the background, what's the mathematical background, what's the wider context. You really have to dive in. And so explaining something without setting up terminology for 10 minutes was a real challenge. And so I think that was one of the things I refined the most, I would say. I don't know if anyone else felt that way.
No, I certainly agree. That was definitely the most challenging. You just have to vaguely step over a large part of what I think all of us would consider the more interesting parts of the research to arrive at the impact, essentially. But I would say that, absolutely, in more academic talks, you do have this a little bit more time, not lots of time, but a little bit more time to set the foundations. But I would say more on the writing research grant side, this is actually perhaps a little bit more what they're expecting is, how can you communicate your research to somebody that might understand mathematics broadly, but is an expert in your area. So I do think that's actually quite a valuable skill we've all gained from this process, is distilling your very nice ideas into something that can be easily digested in a couple of page document.
Yeah, that's really nicely explained. Thank you, all of you. I wonder if you feel that everyone could benefit from this experience. I mean, obviously this is specific to this event. I mean, in your lives, have you encountered any kind of training within academia which would touch on this kind of skill of how to distill and explain your research to a non-technical audience?
So my university does offer public engagement conferences, seminars, and other training opportunities, but it is very much voluntary. It's something you do extra on top of your workload. So whilst I personally do really appreciate the opportunity to upskill in this space, it does require personal motivation. So I do believe every researcher would benefit from such training, but actually the people that are seeking it out are already those that are motivated to do it.
There's more, I think, as Dan touched before on the grant side of things, and I would put more generally in terms of impact. So I think there is more and more a call or an expectation of your research producing impact. In the case of mathematics, as Katherine said before, it's not what a mathematician has in mind. You're motivated by the mathematical problem and its difficulty, its beauty, or whatever is the important thing for you. But at the same time, you have to look for ways to make that impactful. That's an art in itself. Communicating, finding a way to connect your research to others and to the society is therefore a skill. There's more and more of that being offered at the university. But my experience is similar to Daniel. I think that the ones people who are already very interested in that are the ones and usually already a bit good at that, the ones who go for it. But in the end, I think training is important, but the practice is certainly what, as we had prepped our poster presentation beforehand, but in the end, being there, we had to change everything to adapt to our audience, and I think that practice is something you cannot gain from training.
Yeah, really interesting to hear, and the takeaway I get from what you guys are saying there is that it would probably be a very hard sell to present any pure maths research with absolutely no obvious impacts in an environment such as this. Do you think anyone could? Do you think it would be received well, or would it just be too big a challenge?
I think it's tricky. So I work in a kind of area which is halfway between pure and applied maths. So I had a bit of pure maths in my poster. And I did that because I knew there were pure mathematicians on the judging panel. But I think it was tied together by the application. So I think it's a really interesting challenge to think about. As mathematicians, we almost understand that pure maths, has its purpose and is important not just because like it might have some application down the line. I think maybe one of the things people say is, okay, well, number theory is an example, right? Like number theory is useful in cryptography, is what people say. But I think there's a challenge to be presenting pure maths as something that's worthwhile in its own right, which is the way that we think about it as mathematicians. So I'd like to see someone do it. I think it would be fantastic if someone could, but it is very tricky, I would say.
Yes, particularly with an audience of politically minded people who, as Daniel pointed out, probably having people approach them for really practical requests all the time, and to be presented with something which doesn't necessarily have a direct outcome which they can then proudly attach themselves to. I can see why that would be a big challenge. But as you say, if someone can do it, then the future of STEM for Britain will welcome you, I'm sure. It's worth pointing out to anyone listening that the posters which you guys presented, I don't know about your individual cases, but many of them are available on the website for people to view now. So if you would like to browse any of the ones which have happened in 2024 or even in the years prior to this, they are available to look at online. It's a difficult question, but off the top of your heads, each of you, were there any others amongst the other 17 finalists? Are there any others that particularly sort of caught your attention or that you thought were really interesting research areas? I don't know how much time you actually had to walk around and look at each other's work.
I was most interested by the other subjects. The math session was alongside, I think, chemistry, and maybe someone else can remind me, chemistry and physics? Or physics, yeah. And so I quite like looking around at the kind of the chemistry that's happening, because it's not something that I engage with much. I see a lot of maths every day, and the maths is fantastic, but I think it was actually really interesting to see what's happening in other areas of science. So that was the takeaway I had, actually.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. It occurred to me as you were saying how you would have relatively little interactions there. And I mean, one thing that certainly happens where I'm currently sitting right now in INI's main seminar room is interactions between different disciplines, which is where a lot of the outcomes come from these kinds of research programs. So yeah, great point. Was there anything you other guys wanted to add to that point?
Maybe just one thought that I had after, because as Katherine said, I didn't have time to look at other posters other than the ones next to me, which were, when I saw them, they were just excellent, like Daniel's. And so, but anyway, but I really wanted to see the others and I didn't. So it's such a intense event, but it would be nice to see it not being restricted to the parliament, to see, taking it to the Isaac Newton Institute, for example, and showcase the posters on a day, and having something a bit longer, so we could interact more among the finalists, but also among other people who couldn't be there to see the posters.
Yeah, great thought. Yeah, really interesting. Daniel, before I move on, was there anything else you wanted to add into that?
No, similarly, I only remember Francisco's and the gentleman to my right.
Yeah, as you say, then, Francisco, it would be really interesting to sort of have a broader interaction about everything that was presented that day, because there is, as you say, a lot of value there. So you've given me some really good insight into the experience of presenting and what you gained from it. I'm going to ask you a much more superficial question, just because I'm very curious to know your answer to it. How did you find going to Parliament and presenting it there? Because for those listening, you go through the Portcullis House. You go through the Portcullis House entrance, which is on the river, on the banks of the Thames. You go through what's essentially airport security, and then you get taken up to a gallery around the top of this sort of main foyer from that entrance. And if you do walk around there, you see tens and tens of portraits of previous prime ministers. And they're all done in different styles. And then you have access to one particular room in which there are a lot of people crammed in, and it's a real hubbub, and it's an exciting environment. So from my point of view, at least, it was a very interesting experience to get a chance to go to Parliament and to, and it surprised me in ways I didn't expect. How about you guys? Have you been to Parliament before? Did it feel like just another meeting, or was it a particularly apt setting for this kind of awards? What experiences did you have?
To me, it was a very different meeting. It was quite, very particular, but very special as well as you were describing the location and its features, portraits. That was exactly how I was feeling when I was entering. I've never been to Parliament before, so that was first time. And going through that, you catch every single. To me, at least, was like that. You know, you see every single thing that's out there because it's different for you, and so it's a special experience, and I think that made it so, as I was saying, intense. The time just passed by very quickly, and I think it was part of that. So to me, it was quite special, and yeah, it was a memorable day. Yeah.
Yeah, I think special is the word that I would use. I think that was really well put. It didn't just feel like any other poster session. You know, it felt very exciting to be in surrounded by all these fancy portraits, and yeah, it was I've never been to Parliament before, so that was also a new experience. Um, but yeah, I was kind of struck by the whole day, really.
Yeah, if I can say so, well, just one thing, it also felt more. It's just Catherine said that it was not like any other poster. It definitely felt more serious than any other posters where you just have the drunk academic with a glass of wine going by. This was definitely more. I would say more. Yeah, serious.
Well, we were told that the room is bomb-proof, so that maybe that added to the sense of seriousness as well. And also above the kitchens, so very warm but very safe. And Dan, did you have any thoughts about your experience of the day?
Well, yeah, I would agree with Catherine and Francisco that even from the moment you arrive, everything was new. It's certainly the first time I've been to Parliament as well. So the whole day was a very intense experience, not even just the conversations we were having. Actually, since Stenford Britain Night Day, I've been invited back to attend other events as a follow-up from Stenford Britain, where they did get to show me a bit more of Parliament. Because on the day, of course, we only saw Portcullis House, and they said it's a shame that they don't have the opportunity to show off the House of Commons, House of Lords. So from having been never in my life to about 4 times in a month, yes, no, I feel very much more familiar with the place now.
Excellent. No, that's great to hear. And so I had sort of one final question, and before or after I ask it, do feel free to jump in with any sort of final thoughts which you'd like to share. But my final question was, I'd love to hear from each of you what has happened since and what your plans are for the future, because obviously it's a lovely feather in your cap to be able to mention that you were a medalist in these awards. I'd be interested to hear if it's something that you will mention to people generally, and just where your research is taking you now. So should we start with you, Catherine, and then we'll move on to Daniel and finally Francisco. So tell me about what the future holds for you, Catherine.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm still dug into my PhD. I've got another year left, so I'm focusing on writing my thesis at the moment. What comes after that? I'm not sure yet. I haven't thought about it too much, but I think something to do with research is really important to me. I'm quite lucky that I have quite a broad kind of range of research I can do. I've done maths, I've done biology. So I don't know, my future is open, but research definitely, and definitely Stenford Britain has helped with that.
Oh, that's great to hear. Thank you. Let's move on to Francisco. How about you? So what does the future hold for you?
That's a very good question. I would say, well, it's very open. So I'm someone that's more on the postdoctoral research side. So of things. So I'm already looking for my next job. So I hope I can continue doing some research within this broad field that I work on. But it's hard to say. Stenford Britain definitely helped. I got invited to give talks about what I presented there since, and got invited for other interviews, and so it generated some publicity, which is good for my future job prospects. But at the same time, the future is uncertain. So yeah, but I hope to be able to continue doing what I'm doing. Yeah.
Well, that's really great to hear that you benefited from it in that way. And Yeah, it's familiar from everyone I speak to at the same stage of career that you are at, that it is just one long job application, essentially. So you have my sympathy, and you're smiling about it. So clearly you're enjoying it in some way, and I wish you all the best for it. And finally, Dan, what does the future hold for you at the moment?
Okay, so for me, I'm in the early stages of my lectureship, which means I'm given the opportunity now to not necessarily move topics or change topics, but really identify a larger problem to solve or attempt to solve than perhaps what I'm used to. Thinking about PhDs, typically capped about 3 years, postdocs maybe only even 18 months. So this is sort of the first time where I'm looking not a couple of years ahead, I'm looking 5 to 10 years ahead, which gives me an opportunity to tackle much larger problems, but it's something I do not have as much experience in, being able to identify and refine. So for me, it's about sort of casting my mind a bit more forward, seeing, sort of identifying the challenges which are going to be facing us in 10 years, not tomorrow. So for me, I'm spending the next couple of years doing a lot of thinking. I think that's in the immediate future for me.
Oh, great. Well, thank you very much for sharing. So, guys, I've taken up a good half an hour, possibly more, of your mornings, and I really appreciate it. I will now bid you farewell, but if there are any last thoughts, just let me know before I say goodbye.
No, not really. I just want to thank you for putting this together, for inviting us. It's great to be able to talk about our experiences, and I think not only because it's fun to see everyone again, but I think it's something that can be of help to future, as you said in the beginning, for future applicants, or perhaps will help someone else. So it's great to be part of it.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I think that would be a really good outcome from our conversation if it just gives someone that bit of encouragement to take part, because I'm glad it seems to have been as positive an experience for you as it seems from the outside. So great. All right. Well, Katherine, thank you very much for your time, and hope to see you again at some point soon.
Thanks so much.
Daniel, thank you for your time as well.
Thank you for having us on.
And Francisco, thank you as well very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will speak to you again at some point soon, I hope.